In this episode of the Broken to Smokin' podcast, we continue with part 2 of our interview with Joshua Pietrocini. Mark and Joshua pick up their conversation on project management. Go check out episode 050 if you missed the first part of this interview.
Okay. Super interesting, man. So getting back to project management.
A little diversion there.
Or getting back to predictably irrational.
Yeah, right.
Well, we haven't even gotten
We'll
to
hit that in a minute.
Started there, yeah.
We'll hit that in a minute. I want to ask you about, like, what are you looking for in a project manager? When somebody, and again, I think that all businesses that I deal with as a client, they are not doing the work of the business. They have people doing the work of the business.
Okay.
And so they are naturally need to be project managers, the operators of this business. And they're managing different kinds of projects. And a lot of times the projects are really more intangible than the work that the business does. Like, hey, we're going to sell you this gear, install it, make sure it works, and then get paid. Their kind of projects are more like, oh, we're going to figure out how to market ourselves to the market better. Oh, we're going to figure out how to attract people to our culture. Okay, how are we going to do that? We got a plan. Now let's, execute, let's initiate, plan it, execute it, monitor, close it. Did we do it? They don't know how to do that. Well, they're good at many elements of the business. That's what got them to where they are. But they don't know how to transfer that project management chops to the leadership team, to being a member of the leadership team. So anyway, you're looking for a project manager. And so what are you eyeballing? Or what are you kind of like, ooh, there's a good one? What are they saying? What are they showing that makes you say, yeah, you're going to be a great project manager?
Yeah, are they organized?
Yeah.
Are they process-oriented? For us...
How do you know? How can you tell?
How do you know if they're process-oriented?
Yeah.
Well, through this series of questions, like you're asking them through an interview. If I'm asking them specifically, I have a project management interview type questionnaire. We're asking, dude. So
that's great.
Here's the thing, man. First and foremost, though, project manager or not, like, are they core value driven? Do they like people?
Sure.
Do they enjoy? Like, we want core value driven people. We want folks who actually enjoy doing what they're doing and who are hungry and who like people, but also who are thinking in a certain way. You can kind of tell in a conversation. I've got like specific questions. Again, I'll forward those over to you to understand. If we're in an interview for an engineer, we're asking them technical questions. If we're in an interview for a project manager, but how are they handling stress?
Yeah.
How are they handling conflict? What makes them tick? Like, what sort of organizational processes or habits do they have in place right now? Like, what are they learning? What are they paying attention to? What are the things they're excited about? And you can kind of, again, I don't like to be so on the nose. I want to have a conversation with these people because it's humans. I almost wish we'd rethink the way the world does interviews. And I actually said
roger that.
I actually said it to Brandon and Jody, on the last couple of interviews. I was like, what we should do, man, when it comes time to bring him into Brandon and I, we should just go play some darts. Yeah. Or we should just go golf or play disc golf or something. I just want to get to know who this human is and how they have conversations and how they ask.
Yeah,
how they ask. Are they asking questions? Have you ever been in a relationship with someone who never asks a question?
Yeah,
it's weird.
Well, it's hard. It's a weird relationship.
It's weird. They just like to talk all the time. They never ask a question. They're not interested. They just want to be heard. And there's a lot to be said in just an interaction like that. So, for project management specifically, you got to be an organized dude. You got to be thinking, and very quickly you can tell. I had an internal project come up yesterday. I brought a project manager in, and I'm already thinking about these things, but he's asking from all sides. So is he wondering on behalf of, do you have the ability to deploy empathy and and sit in a different seat and start to think about, well, what about from the end user's perspective? What about this? What has to happen from the engineering perspective? What has to happen from a communication? How do we communicate this thing out to our clients or our internal people if this change is going to be made? They're thinking about things that maybe other people aren't thinking about. They're thinking about risk. They're thinking about timeline. They're thinking from the end back, right? So you kind of get a little bit of that through conversation, but you can ask, if you want to, if it's part of your interview process, you can ask very specific questions about when's the best time that you did such and such, or tell me about a time that you were able to overcome a shenanigan.
Right, the standard.
Yeah, dude, yeah, yep. I mean, and all those they all exist, and they all serve a certain purpose.
Yeah.
But I mean, what are you looking for? What is the heartbeat of that organization? Who do they want to bring on? What's important to them? First, recognizing, and I think that's a big part of this book too, is understanding your weaknesses and your limitations. And so if they're bringing on someone, like you talked about that assessment, you have to have 6 different kinds of people. Mm-hmm. I don't know the assessment, but they're probably different things that if you have all 6, it's a very well-rounded team, right? So that your client or your team who's looking for a project manager, what are the things they don't currently have or that they suck at?
Yeah.
Use your define the opposite.
Yeah.
To say, all right, well, who do we want then? What kind of individual do we want? How do we want them to think? How do we want them? Like we need to honor that skill set.
Yeah.
Because it's a different skill set. Like there are sales guys who crush it at sales, and there's our operations team who wouldn't want to have anything to do with sales. And it's like the hand and the foot and the eye. Like we want a team made up of different parts that have different functions, and also honor those things. Because we don't want a bunch of hands. We got enough hands. Right. We want some eyeballs to tell us where we're going, to look out for these things. We want a nervous system. Yeah. We want some feet to take us where we're going. And so are we going to be able to honor that guy thinks differently than me? He's got a skill set differently than me. He's got experience. What is your experience? Tell me about some of the best projects. Why did they go well? Mm-hmm. What made them go well?
Yeah.
So tell me some of the shittiest projects you've ever done. Why were they shitty? What happened?
Yeah.
What kind of gotchas did you step into? Tell us about your intake process. Tell us about your initiation process. What kind of team were you working with? I mean,
that's all good stuff. It's so interesting that you don't. I mean, you have a ton of questions. And I'll poke at a client. I'm like, all right, so you got a candidate? Well, they'll say, yeah, we've got a candidate. We're interviewing for, I don't know, whatever, VP of something. Like, yeah, what are you asking them?
Yeah. What are you asking them?
I'll poke right at that. Well, we're asking them stuff, and you got like this list. I love it, and I'm like, guys. Yeah, how many times have you hired folks? Oh, dozens and dozens. And you don't have a list of questions?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, what's important to you?
That's right.
What do you want to know?
Yeah.
What's important for you to when I'm done? So one of the questions I ask at the very end of all my interviews, I say, imagine yourself, close your eyes. I say, close your eyes. Imagine you're driving home and you're calling your wife or your spouse and you're telling her how the interview went. And you're like, damn, I wish I would have said X. I wish I would have asked X.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to give you a second. Try to think about what that thing is. What do you want to know, or what do you wish we knew that you didn't say yet or we didn't ask about? And that's kind of a cool one.
Yeah.
Because it's like, every one of us as humans are driving home and you're like, damn, I wish they would have known this thing.
Every time.
Mm-hmm.
I wish they would have known that. Or I wish I would have asked them this question.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a fun one for me.
Yeah.
Also, what do you want to be when you're 8?
That's a good one.
Yeah. Like when you're 8 years old, like what do you want to be? Brandon likes to ask like who their hero is. Like, like who do they look up to in life? Who are they excited about?
Yeah.
Like, is it their dad? Is it their grandpa? Is it some mentor? Like what's their relationships like?
Yeah.
How do they navigate through difficulties in their journey? Who are they? Jody always asks, like, you could put on the movie producer hat, tell Brandon and Joshua about who such and such is. And he'll give them the opportunity to like, here's my story. And most guys start out with their resume. Right. Or like, I worked at this place. And we're like, nah, man, what do you enjoy doing in life?
Yeah.
Who are you? Like, I don't want to just like in this Predictably Irrational, especially like we all are influenced by certain things. My friend told me about 10 or 15 years ago, he said he hates the question when you meet someone at a party, hey, what do you do?
Right.
Because all of a sudden I've got preconceived notions about that thing. Oh, you're a doctor. Oh, you're rich and you're this. Or, oh, you're a plumber. Oh, you must be that. And I was like, what? So he's changed it to, what do you enjoy doing? And that's in my opinion, it's a much better question.
Yeah.
Because then I'm asking the person, like, I want to get to know, like, what are you interested in? Who are you?
Yeah.
What are your likes and dislikes? And I mean, that's a better question at a party rather than what do you do? It's interesting about what you do for a living if you enjoy doing it, but if you're just like punching the clock, it only tells me so much. And then I've already got preconceived judgments on you.
Right.
You know?
You know, it's hard to unearth some big truths about folks in interviews, and it's the big truths about folks that make or break the team and make or break, you know, whether we're doing a good job and if our business is doing well and all that.
Right.
And we've been talking about assessments in the last bunch of episodes, like what, 6 or 7 episodes.
Bunch,
all kinds of assessments. We've covered Colby. We've covered a little bit of StrengthsFinder, Culture Index,
Predictive Index.
We haven't done that one yet.
Enneagram.
That's
right.
Yeah. Yeah, we should get Sonia Weiland on here and talk about Predictive Index. Are you familiar with Predictive?
I am, yeah.
Tell me about it. What do you like about it?
Well, I've only taken it one time. It was a couple years ago, and I think it's interesting. I was talking to Jody about that, and I said, you know, one of the things we're short on in our interview process is identifying, because I have a love-hate relationship with all these assessments, Mark.
Sure.
So, like, there's been seasons of my life where I poured everything into them, and there's been seasons where I'm like, dude, I don't care about this. Got it. But they all say something different about you. The Predictive Index, when I took it, it was probably 4 or 5 years ago. What I found interesting was my friend who gave me the readout of what happened. He's like, well, the good news is you are who you say you are. Like when you're answering these questions, like in your personal life or in your work life, you are who you say you are. And if it's a huge contrast, it means something's going on in your life in this season, or like you're kind of a double-minded person.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So it's like, all right, so it's predicting how I'm going to do in this role or with this company. And I'd love to dig into it. And I actually, that was one of the 2 or 3 that Jody and I suggested that like we should probably implement into our system, because it or even for existing employees, like it's probably valuable just to, are you who you say you are? Are you the same guy at work that you are at home? Is there a vast contrast? Are you in a season of something? And I think they all have value, you know? Like, you know, I've been thinking about this for 10 years. I want to create like a matrix.
Yeah.
I want to create my own thing. I don't know how to do it. Where you plug in all the assessments, and then really figure out like, oh, this is the printout of, because there's Gallup, there's Enneagram, and they all give you
different
really,
shots.
Myers-Briggs and DISC, and it hits it from different angles. And depending on like what you're looking for, I think from a hiring standpoint, though, the Predictive Index, at least from what I remember, feels like a pretty good tool.
Culture Index is I think, if I understand the history of Culture Index, it's kind of an outgrowth. It's an evolution past Predictive Index. I think the folks that developed Culture Index kind of took where Predictive Index ended and they went from there.
Okay.
If I understand it right. And it's kind of like, from a hiring, managing, developing folks, it's kind of like the Cadillac of it's pretty hefty to get into it as a team. And you got to hire a pro to help you walk through it. And we interviewed David Quick, who's a great predictive index or a culture index guy, among other things. But I like it does that kind of who you say you are or who you wish you were when you're that gap between
in different scenarios
and it's very practical. Colby, I love Colby. I think Colby would be a fabulous addition to what you guys are doing, and it's fairly accessible to get into, and it's basically assessing a part of you that the other tests don't really do that good of a job, the other assessments. The cognitive part, which is kind of how you execute, or how you kind of take information and produce with it. And the other ones dabble in that or touch it, but this just focuses on that. It's a great kind of paints the other side of the picture. I don't know whatever metaphor I'm using here, but mixing metaphors paints the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
But you know what none of these do? Side? Yeah, and Lencioni talks about this. When I saw him in 2020 at a conference, and he talked about interviewing. And at that point, he was working on Ideal Team Player, which is hungry, humble, smart. Fabulous. It's a fabulous little modality for character, if you will.
Dude, you should talk to Jer too.
Yeah.
Like not just from the Gallup side. I mean, everyone knows the Gallup Strength Finders, but there's like 3 or 4 other assessments that they're doing for the team that take a way deeper dive into all that stuff.
Well, there's that builder profile.
Yeah.
I've done a little bit with that one. I like that one. I know there's a few others. I'm just not familiar with them. But what they don't, I kind of was the other day after working with a client, I was like, these things don't really show some really important elements like work ethic.
Yeah.
It doesn't really say, all right, so like grit, your ability to hang in there
and grind
and just stick it out.
Yeah.
Where, talent's okay. That's important. But, looking at Billy Beane and Moneyball, his story, he was super talented.
Yes, he was.
But it didn't mean he was going to succeed, and there's some other elements.
Yeah, budgetary.
Sure. Well,
that was a huge one.
Well, and then from his specific vantage point as a 5-tool player, he should have been a superstar in the major league, and he just kind of fizzled.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about him as a player.
Yeah, him as a player. That's right. So anyway, work ethic. Another one, it doesn't measure character. It doesn't measure your value system.
Dude, that's what this gets into.
Yeah.
Like towards the end, it gets into character.
Yeah. Also, these assessments don't measure chemistry. It's really hard to predict. I like talking about bands in this way. I say, man, if you took, the singer out of this band and the singer from this other band and stick them in there, they're all pros. They're all super experienced. They've been around the block for a long, long time. Like Paul Rogers from Bad Company.
Okay.
Came and sang with Queen. And he, how would you take Freddie Mercury and replace him with Paul Rogers? Both incredible singers. But is that Queen now that you got Paul Rogers in there singing with, you know what I'm saying? It's just a different, different mix.
Or the singer from Journey.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
I think one of the most fascinating ones is John Mayer as a part of
with
the
Dead.
Grateful Dead.
Yeah, it was so strange.
That one's real weird because that guy's a generation, maybe 2 behind where those guys are. And that's 50 years of, it's not just studio album. It's like,
it's a movement.
They open up their mind and they're riffing for 45. They might go off on a 45-minute tangent in any given song.
Yeah.
And that's 50 years worth of chemistry that this dude just stepped into.
Yeah. And you can't just kind of like put probes on them and say,
how do you do that? Yeah. Right. Yeah. How do you do that?
That's right. Another one is, how are they going to work under pressure? Like when the pressure and the intensity goes way up. So you take a scratch golfer, let's say. Okay, so they're out playing in a country club and they're, scoring 70, 71, 72. But you put them in a money situation, you put them on a tour, you put them in a pressure situation beyond just, playing with friends or playing, kind of in a local tournament. It all changes, and that's a different deal. And it's the same game, same stuff, but what changes is some of that internal stuff, and it's really hard to figure that out. Yeah. And in a business, you have a lot of those situations come up.
Yeah, you do.
And all of a sudden, all of the past history, all your I'm certified in this, I'm certified. Yep. That's all out the window.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's a whole different group of people.
That's right. And so in an interview process, it's kind of important to be able to figure some of that crap out.
Yeah, it is.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So Lencioni was talking about interviewing at this the unconference. It was called. It's 2020. It was actually like the week before COVID, or COVID was ramping up, and where everybody's like, "Are we going to this thing or not?" And that's where I met Alan Mullally too. Fabulous, interesting story, interesting guy. But his wife was running a significant nonprofit, and his wife like, "Hey, can you help me interview this guy or gal?" I don't remember who it was, but he was under the gun timing wise. He's constantly running around, and so he asked this person to travel with him to the East Coast. They're in, I think, San Francisco or something like that, somewhere on the West Coast. And they traveled to the East Coast because he had a bunch of things he had to do, and he took this person with him. And as trips sometimes go, the flights fell apart. Hotels and running, red eye stuff, and basically this person's character like popped out really strongly, and he got back. He's like, "Don't hire this person. Their resume looks great, but paper. Never would have seen these other things if you didn't do this weird interview."
Right.
Go and volunteer. Go and feed the poor. Yeah. Go and serve in a soup kitchen. Go and do some sort of weird civic project or off-axis thing, to your point, to find out what they're made of a little bit. Put them in, knock them off their game a little bit.
Man, there's a real cool opportunity, I think, in the industry to figure out a way, if someone could figure out a way to come up with some innovative platform to do that. But, I mean, that also goes back to hire slowly, fire quickly.
Yeah, that's right.
What are the...
How do you do that?
How do you do it?
Yeah.
Like, how are we hiring slow?
Right.
And what does it mean to fire quickly?
Yeah.
So it's not like all right, we understand. The last person we hired, we did on a contract, and part of it was because of the nature of the role that this individual is going to be in. But I thought it was kind of unique way for us to approach this one, because it was like, hey, right now we have this contract that's 1 year, and we're hiring this individual on a 1-year contract. So like, show me why after this year, if this client doesn't renew, why you should continue to be a part of our team. I mean, that's like a long short, but I mean, to what we're speaking about, it's at what point does hire slow, fire quickly? Like, what's quickly?
Yeah.
Quickly 30 days, 90 days, a year?
Yeah.
At what point do we establish the criteria in which we say, like, okay, this individual maybe is not a great fit for who we are or what we're trying to do? Or because, that Simon Sinek says there's no such thing as bad employees, just bad managers. I believe that at a 9 out of 10.
Right.
Because we all know, like, there are guys who have a nice resume or can say all the right things or can give lip service and can get in the door. And sometimes, like, and I've had this happen recently where I had to say to an individual, like, hey man, I can equip, I can train, I can educate, I can guide, I can instruct, I can block, I can tackle, I can protect. I can give you resources, but I can't make you want to do this job. That part's not on me.
Yeah.
And like my philosophy from a manager leader is management of elimination of excuses. So like one of the things I set out for when I was director of operations and then VP of operations, I said, I want to be able to answer these questions. What is your job? Like a job description, clarity. What is expected of you? What are the processes in which you need to do your job? What are the tools that you do your job? How am I looked at? How am I measured? How am I performed? What happens if I don't do these things?
Yeah.
So there's like 7 or 8 questions that I want to have answered. And then it's like, sky's the limit, man. I want to get out of your way. Mm-hmm. Like while they report to me, I say I work for them. I want to work for you so that you can go serve the client really, really well. I want to get out of your way, but I want to make sure that you have everything you need. But like, it's up to you. Like after I've answered all these questions, like it's up to you to thrive or shit the bed. And especially when, like, for our organization where we start with the core values, it's like, here's who we are, here's who we want to be and become, and this is the culture that we're trying to build. And it's not for everybody, and that's okay. If it's not for you, that's okay. That's okay. But like those things, like when you live within proximity and the core values are actually something that you is infused into the everyday language of your organization, it starts to sift out and, weed a thinner road for the people who like, come through as folks who want to be a part of that or folks who don't want to be a part of that. And if they don't, that's okay. It's okay. It's like, this is what we're doing. It doesn't mean you have to change who you are, or it helps if our company's core values, which is things we value at our core, align with the core values of who you are as an individual. But if they don't, let's be honest about that. I wouldn't say as a mentor per se, but you know this guy. I was an older individual in my life who had said, we can't move forward from where we're not. So let's be honest with where we are and move forward from there. That's a big deal, because we like to think we're somewhere we're not. But like when we're honest with where we actually are, we can move forward from there. I can work with that. I can work with where we are today, whether that's an individual, as a team, as a department, or a company. Let's be honest with where we are, and we can move forward from there.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
I love how you're so intentional about these questions, interviewing, project managing a hire. You're talking about objectives and all that, and it's surprising to me how little of this gets written down and executed on. This is very intuitive stuff. None of this is rocket science.
No, it's not right. It's all within our grasp. Here's the deal, dude. The majority of our waking hours are spent at working. So what I say to my guys, my team, I say, like, we might as well love doing what we're doing and who we're doing it with and who we're doing it for. The majority of our waking hours are spent doing this thing. It'd be a shame to spend the waking hours doing something you hate doing.
Right.
So and I said, hey, I got a confession to make. Like, all this stuff I'm saying to my team, I actually believe it. And I actually am trying to build the thing that I want to be a part of as well, because I also have to wake up and drive into work and feed my family and spend my hours doing this. So I want to be a part of the thing I'm saying I want to be a part of. It's not some ploy. It's not some trick. But we spend the majority of our waking hours doing this thing. It'd be a shame to hear my guys just come in, punch a clock, do some things. They go home, they eat dinner, they do whatever they do. They watch Netflix, they go to bed, and they come home and do it again. That'd break my heart. So it's like, especially in the IT industry that gets like kind of a bad rap, or like a stereotypical like, it's IT. It's like, we're in the service industry. So like, we have an opportunity to be able to demonstrate how we do business differently. On the other end of the phone, like, Mark, how often are you calling your internet provider and telling them that your internet's working awesome? Probably never, right?
Never.
Hey,
Thank you.
hey, my internet's great today. I just want to tell you. Never, right?
Right.
So, like, the people, especially our help desk guys, who are receiving phone calls, there's an individual on the other end of the phone.
Yeah.
They're probably stressed out. They're probably pissed off.
Right.
Something's going bad, right? That's why they're calling. So that person on the other end of the phone, it's like they're having a bad day maybe. Their dad just died, or their kid just went away to college, or their dog's sick, or who knows? They're going through a divorce. And they just want to look good for their boss. And the thing that they're limited by right now is keeping them from doing their job. And they have a need and we have a skill. Can you, just for a few minutes, just be present and be a normal human being and relate to the person on the other end of the phone and help them with the thing that you're a guru in, you know? And if we get that's language I'm constantly trying to instill into our people. We got a care package yesterday from a gal who sent 30 different kinds of treats. And she wrote a handwritten letter that said, you guys helped me be able to print 4x6 labels.
That's great.
I said, you guys.
That's so awesome.
I said, never underestimate. Like, this might be a laughable task to you. It might be something that you're like, it's so easy. Like, we don't even do it.
Yeah.
I was like, but like, whatever her job is,
Yeah.
you guys allowed her to be able to print on 4x6 labels.
Yeah.
And she not only thought it was so cool, she took the time and carved out of her day to write you a letter, handwritten, and put together 15 or 20 different treats, including, I'm going to say this, not only were they all prepackaged treats that their company supplies, that's what they do, but she had like a Ziploc bag that she put special treats in and hand wrote like chocolate almonds.
No way.
And I was like, dude, that's the cutest one. That right there is like all those prepackaged ones are cool, but this one's the cutest
Yeah,
one.
it's personal.
Yeah, it's personal.
That's really cool.
And she sent it. And I'm like, man, that's the stuff. And we've been having in the last couple of weeks, it's been really fun to see the fruit of our team. Like there's a lot of victory to be able to celebrate. And it's important to stop and smell the roses. Mark, you told me when I was raising my kids, and I've actually used this with my team, you said, we're not growing radishes, we're growing trees. And I say that, like that's language at TTX, just so you know. You said that to me as a young man. I'm 43 now. You said that to me when I was 26 and having kids. Oh. You said, we're not growing radishes. They don't just pop up overnight. We're growing trees here. So it takes a long time.
Yeah.
And changing a culture takes a long time.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen overnight.
That's right.
A lot of the stuff we're doing doesn't happen overnight. A lot of it is it's the slow play. It's the long game. So
tell me, and thanks for reminding me of that. I mean,
yeah, man.
Radishes are a 30-day deal, man. It's really fun in the gardening sense because you plant them and up they come.
Up.
They're first thing you get, and
Yep.
it's really fun. Tell me about your core values.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first off, people focused, and our core values have 3 sub points to them. So the cool thing about this one in particular is that it starts with U plus TTX equals happy, healthy. Now, I don't know. I wasn't a part of this when you guys created. You were.
I was.
You were a part of this.
Yes.
Yeah. So when they were created, so U plus TTX equals happy, healthy. Then it's camaraderie, and then it's client in the room.
Yeah.
I think the unique thing about this one in particular is it's our first core value, but also it starts with you. It starts with a healthy you, right? And then it goes to team, and then it goes to client, which I think is fascinating because like there are old school organizations that will like say yes to the client at the expense of themselves or at the expense of the people next to them. And so this one, I don't know if this was on purpose. I hope it was. I think it was. Yeah. But it starts with a you. And that's something I say to my team. I said to Brandon downstairs, I said, like if we're not becoming better men, better fathers, better husbands, we got to take a look at ourselves. Let's look around. Because it's like, yeah, we're doing a job, But like if it doesn't start with a healthy individual, because a healthy individual who's taking care of themselves can come and they're feeling good, and then they're having, like I think Gallup says that you're like 86% more engaged if you have like a friend at work. You're busting balls with the guy next to you, and all of a sudden the phone rings and you're like, hey, how's it going? Like you just get done talking to your buddy, and then you can answer the phone, and that pours out, that pours over. FILO, first in, last out. The sub points of that: own the outcome, character and trust, which is one that doesn't get talked about a lot, but it is like the lifeblood of everything that we do. And then self-motivated. Are we looking for self-motivated people? Now, I will say this, and this is something that Brandon has said. It's like, this is not a checklist that we're trying to like check off these core values. There's something that we try to live within proximity of, right? Third one, elite. And then the sub points are ace in your lane. Give me the ball and aim higher. The fun thing about like the sub bullet points are, and this is something I instilled into my kids, when it's easy in American society to like say, hey, nice haircut, asswipe. Like they'd like bust balls to guys. It's harder to say like, Shane, I saw the way that you handled that client. I mean, do more of that. Like, that was awesome. Like, that's something only you do. You should do more of that. Like, the way that you were able to organize that and, like, calm her down. Like, calm the gold out. And I say, hey, recognize that. When your brother does that thing, say, like, that was kindness. Mm-hmm. Let's do more of that. Yeah. Let's look for more of that. And so it's like, this is all language that we're, for the last 2 or 3 years, that we're trying to instill into our people. All about the flag. So fourth one. So I've got your back. I as we, and stewards of the brand. And there are some dudes who are carrying our flag that you're like, who those folks are, right? So like as a leader or manager, you want to look at the folks who maybe aren't carrying the flag, and you're like, man, those guys are out there carrying the flag. Like they are I as we. Like that was I as we. And so like what's happening lately in our culture is guys are starting to praise one another. In fact, last Friday, there was, at the end of the day, there was a glory fest happening in operations.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. There's a lot of victory. There's a lot of pretty high-end installations that happen from the project side. And so these dudes were just glory throwing all over the place to their team members. And this guy was calling out this guy, and this guy's like, no, well, don't underestimate yourself. And there's all this cool stuff happening. And it engaged the entire team at the last hour of the day on Friday.
That's great.
That's I as we. That's like, hey, man, I got your back. You were there with me. We were against all odds. Like, the timeline was against us. There were constraints that were outside of our control. You rose to the occasion. You didn't bitch about it. You came, you showed up, you helped me out. I have your back. Like that's when we start seeing this stuff being lived out. And the last one is eyes wide open. So innovative problem solver.
Okay.
Self-aware and active learning. Self-aware is an interesting one, because innovative problem solving is like, okay, are we wondering on the client's behalf? Are we trying to provide them an experience worth remembering? Are we like not just a problem that we're like, well, like let's turn it on its head. Let's get other people involved. Like, what's another way we can think about this? What might they need? And project managers are good about thinking about that stuff, about the full way around. But that's something we're trying to deploy and instill in our people too.
What's the third one? So eyes wide open. So it's innovative problem solver,
self-aware.
And what's the third one?
Active learning. So that's a big deal. So that's where, something I had heard from our folks is professional development. What are some other areas that we're trying to learn? And that's where Jody came in key for operations. Is last year, 2020, we developed tailored development syllabuses for each of the individuals.
That's great.
And so there were 5 domains I wanted to hit. Some of them might be core values. Some of them might be business 101. It might be the tools that we use. Some of them might be the products that we sell, or their specific role, like certifications and things of that nature. There was, I think we had like 5 or 6 books that we were like, and this was year 1. That was last year. So it was year 1. So it's like, all right, well, let's try these courses. Let's try these things. And we tried to give each individual a syllabus that they had to execute on by the end of the year. And there were different classes or courses or things of that nature, opportunities for them to serve or overlap within those 5 domains. Just because like they asked for it, it's one of our core values. We say we're active learners. Let's be active learners.
Yeah.
What are you learning? What are you paying attention to? Are you hungry? And that's a muscle, man. That's not something people think like they have permission. As an engineer, they might not think they have permission to think about or do.
Yeah.
But some people have it. Some people don't. Some people need trained in it. Some people need a little pat in the butt.
Yeah.
Or fed. Like, hey, here's a bowl of porridge. It's good for you.
Yeah.
Let's eat it.
Yeah.
And then there's some that may resist it.
Yeah. Well, and that's the coaching side.
That's the coaching side. Yeah.
A pat on the back or a kick in the rear.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
That's
come
right.
on, let's go.
Yeah.
Or great job. You did it.
Yeah.
For me, the reading, talking about reading business books and that kind of learning, that has been something I've really had to develop that muscle. It's not something I've appreciated it. It's a no-brainer. Like, dude, you should be really ingesting all this stuff. But it's not like a good time to me. It's not what I would rather be reading Dune or Lord of the Rings.
This stuff?
Yeah.
It's hard for you?
Oh yeah. I have to really buckle down and be disciplined to do it. It pushes on a part of me that is just I got to gut through it.
What drives you to do it?
It's good for me. It's good for my clients.
You know that?
And yeah, it's a huge part of it's at the core of my kind of strategic flywheel.
Okay.
Which is at the center of my strategic flywheel is mastery of facilitating, coaching, teaching, tools and processes around those things.
Yep.
So I have to be constantly mastering these things.
Yeah.
And mastery is not familiarity.
Yeah.
Mastery is not just kind of like, yeah, I heard about that thing. It's a much higher level, and in order to be a pro in this space, dude, you got to be practicing.
Yeah.
And it's I think one of the things I love to say to my client leaders is, hey, dude, act your wage.
Act your wage.
Yeah, like so if you're on a leadership team, you better come to the table with some answers.
Yeah.
Come to the table with some ideas. Like we're paying you to lead this company.
Right.
So what are you going to do?
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, who hired you? That guy. And he's like, oh, I don't know. Right. I'm throwing him under the bus here a little bit, but that's pretty common where folks get comfortable with their paycheck and they get comfortable with their schedule and they get comfortable with their parking spot, and it's just kind of their day job and it's a career path. And even in the small business, even in the entrepreneurial kind of small business, 50 employees, whatever, it can get to be very, plodding along, just doing what we did yesterday. We're going to do that tomorrow too. And it's like, no, we need folks to get out there and figure it out and do something about it and get better. Like keep mastering your leadership skills, So as a leader, as a leadership team member, you own leading people, managing people, holding people accountable. We got to get good at it.
Yeah.
And it's surprising how many members of leadership teams are there for other reasons than they're good at it.
Yeah, you don't arrive.
Yeah.
Never.
You gotta that's what mastery is, right? You can keep climbing, keep going.
Yeah, there was actually, there's a lot of Daniel Pink stuff in this book here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that reminded me of the Daniel Pink stuff.
From Drive.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
Yeah, it is a good one.
Well, I love the core values. And you were talking about them, so I want to get you to rattle them off. And I've had Brandon rattle them off a couple times on this podcast. But these are some of the best ones. I had so much fun helping
that
the team.
group.
Yeah. Develop those.
Yeah, and you did the define the opposite, and you also did like, hey, list the attributes of the folks that are some of your best people.
Yeah,
Hearing that on the back end, dude.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that when I was a PM, I was a part of that.
Yeah, you're on the.
You know what I mean?
You were. Yeah, you were. Definitely.
Like, I'd like to think like, hey, I contributed towards some of these things.
Sure.
Because, dude, I don't have a secret sauce as a VP of Ops. Like, I love people. All the stuff I had said already in the last hour or whatever, like, I believe all that stuff. Like, there's no secret trick or whatever. I grind. Like, I take pride in, like, no one's going to outwork me.
Yeah.
Like, I want to learn as much as I can learn and, like, equip my people.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that, there's some real beauty in that. And there's some stuff that, like, I should reassess. Like, I've been down and in for a long time, like trying to, like, underground, trying to fix some of the foundational things to answer those questions for my folks. And to try to be able to instill all that stuff for them. But, like, I believe that, man. I work for them. I work for them so they can go work for the client and, like, provide them a really, really cool experience. And I'm never satisfied, which is like a double-edged sword. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, keeps going.
Yeah, it does.
Well, going back to strategy, the question of, hey, what are we in the business of? What is it that we do?
Yeah.
We're in a category of one. In what way? What is it that we provide? And, Danny Meyer, the restaurant, famous restaurateur, spell that, restaurateur. I had to look that up twice.
Restaurateur?
Restaurateur. I don't think there's an N there. Maybe there's an N in there.
What's it mean?
The guy who owns restaurants.
That's what it means?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Restaurateur?
Yeah.
Is a guy who owns multiple restaurants, like
Shane,
two or more?
Yeah, Shane. Well, I don't know if it's two or more. I don't know if there's a volume component. But so he, Shake Shack and a bunch of others, Gramercy.
Yeah.
A famous guy, really kind of the top of the class. He said this many times. He's really good at, and that book, Culture Code, really good at kind of shows. They interview him a bunch. Shows how he takes his culture and gets it into his peeps. But he said this in his book, Setting the Table. Life and business is all about how we make people feel. It's that simple and it's that difficult. And so when you say, all right, we're in the business of making people feel what?
Say that again, real quick.
Life and business is all about how we make people feel.
Yeah.
It's that difficult. And it's that easy, or it's that simple, and it's that difficult. So, you're talking about your call center folks and getting the care package. You made that woman's day.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Right? And you made her a hero, right? And
not me.
Well,
my guys
your
did.
guys.
Yeah, my guys did. Yeah.
And so saying, all right, we're in the business of making people feel what?
Yeah.
Like fill in the blank,
seen.
right?
Yeah,
feel seen, feel heard. Like we're going to disappear if we're working right. We disappear. Nobody's calling us if it's working right, that sort of thing. And a lot of times at the center of this kind of flywheel, like a business that you're a part of, what's at the core is our culture.
Yeah.
So we say, all right, when we invest in our culture, when we get great people here, how are we going to get great people here? Well, we got to have a world-class culture.
Yeah.
And world-class culture attracts world-class peeps,
That's right.
And it repels people that are posers, and it repels people that are no bueno.
We hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, we hope so.
And also getting into saying, well, we develop them.
Yeah.
So we have a long, again, going back to growing trees.
Yeah.
We this isn't about hiring, it's about developing. It's about bringing somebody in green.
Yep.
And kicking around, not kicking them around, but kicking around with them for 2, 3, 4 years.
That's not cookie cutter.
No.
That's not cookie cutter.
And it takes a lot. And look at the Cleveland Guardians, the Oakland
They're
A's,
incredible.
right? That's their
developing, training, recruiting,
right.
developing. Yep.
I had a really interesting kind of first-hand experience with some of that. I've got a buddy, Dylan Covey, who pitches for I think he's with the Phillies now.
Okay.
But I was able to go to spring training last winter and hang out with him some when he's with the Dodgers.
Oh, that's sweet.
And he's, I don't know, 32. I babysat him a little bit when he was like 2 or 3.
For real?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he's my son's age, my oldest. And I'm good friends with his parents from L.A. And he got into the Dodgers organization, and he was in the White Sox organization for a while. And it was this night and day comparison to how they treat their people as they're coming into spring training and now how they develop them. And the Dodgers are super intentional about personalizing their development of each of these people. You know, and so he showed up, he's telling me, you know, we're standing around, what's his name? Kershaw is standing. I don't know.
Clayton Kershaw?
I'm not up on all that.
Yeah.
And I'm standing there talking to Dylan and this other guy.
He's a tier 1 pitcher.
Yeah, world class, right? And,
yeah.
you know, just chit-chatting. And, you know, and Dylan's dad's like, dude, that's Clayton Kershaw.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Like, because I'm not, you know, I mean, it's been a decade or two since I've been, you know, current with baseball. You know, I'm like CC Sabathia, you know, stuff like that. 90s Indians, Tomey and whoever. But so anyway, Dylan Covey shows up at spring training and he walks in, and he was with the White Sox. So when he walked in with the White Sox, they had like pizza and chicken and JoJo's for everybody. And they kind of don't care about you, and they, you know, use you and abuse you. And you could tell from the front office that that's the way they do it. He could tell because he figured that's how the Dodgers were. So he showed up at the Dodgers.
That was his experience, so he just applied
it. And they're like, hey, we've got this whole personalized diet for you.
Yeah.
And a personalized workout plan.
Wow.
And there's all this great food, and we need you to eat this and this and this and that because we've been thinking about your arm, and we've been thinking about your stamina, we've been thinking about your whatever.
Your mental health.
Yeah, all of it. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Totally invested in finding the diamonds in the rough.
Isn't that cool?
That's their strategy.
Yeah.
And then they go play baseball.
Yeah.
You know, so if you say, well, we're a baseball team. No, actually, we're a recruiting, we're a training, we're a development organization. We're not, and we find people and they play baseball, you know? So as a business of this size, 50, 20, 30, 100 employees, whatever, the principals have moved past doing the work of the business. And now what they do is they find, recruit, train, manage, lead people. They're in this people business.
Yeah.
And the people do the other stuff.
That's right.
Right. And they haven't got the memo often that's what's shifted.
Yeah. Wake up.
Yeah, and that's part of my job is to kind of slap them around a little bit.
Wake up.
Get them to see that, and then get them to create macro processes.
Or go do something else.
Yeah, that's right.
Get the hell out of the way.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, like we're a part of something pretty special.
Yes, you are.
We want to be a part of it for a long time. Mm-hmm. And so like we're going to protect that thing, and I want to be a part of a group of people that I like being with.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right. That's awesome.
So it's like, hey, like I'm going to be with these people for a long time. Like these people, we want to be selective in the way that we bring them in, but everyone's different, man. And like, you know, coming at it with an open stance, because we're not going to get it right all the time.
Yeah.
And being honest with that and what that means, and you know, it's like any relationship, but that's the key right there is relationship.
Yeah, and you think about, well, it's money, it's sales, it's margin. Like, no, that's something else. That's showing if it's working.
Yeah.
Sure.
Love
that. It's one of the reasons I love your boss.
Yeah,
by
man.
the way. He's great.
He's a gem.
Yes, he is.
He's a gem. He's one of a kind. Yeah, he is.
Yeah, Brandon Kenney, CEO, TTX. So big shout out, no BK, and we call him
BK Brewer.
So
this concludes part 2 of our interview with Joshua Pietrocini. Please join us in episode 052 for part 3. Thanks again for watching and listening to the Business Broken to Smoking podcast. And make sure to click subscribe.